Our next speaker here today and early morning, coming early morning onto our panel today, our speaking panel today is Jos Schaap, who is the CEO and founder of ROOMDEX. Welcome, Jos. It's great to have you here, and we're looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're all good.
All right, cool. Thanks. Well, thanks for having me again. Again, I'm going to talk a little bit about early arrivals and late departures, and Michael actually mentioned some of it in his presentation already, as it being used as a perk for members, loyalty guests. So I'll talk about that also a little bit. But I think I'm going to really focus on, are they here to stay? Are they something that can really help a hotel? Are they something that hotel guests really appreciate and love to take when they need it? So that's sort of what I'm going to talk about. A little bit about myself. My name is Jos Schaap. I've been in this business for a very, very long time. I started my career at Hilton International, then worked for 18 years at Micros, where I was in charge of the Micros Opera products. And shortly before it got sold to Oracle, I left to start my own company called Stay in Touch, which was a PMS that I sold in 2018 to the Shiji Group. Took a bit of a break, and last year I started with two of my old friends who are actually based out of California, which is why I am up very early today. A company called ROOMDEX, and ROOMDEX focuses 100% on upselling, but the focus right now around room upgrade, early arrival, and late departure. And we think, or we know, we can generate immediate revenue and ROI to hotels. We drive ADR and RevPAR in the right direction, even during things such as COVID. So that's about ROOMDEX. I'm going to switch back now to basically something I'm hoping you'll find useful and take away. So the topics I'm going to talk about a little bit today is the guest buying tension arc, the principles of upselling around early arrival and late departure. Why is this a great opportunity for revenue? Why is it a great guest service point? What does that mean in numbers? So we have some sample sets from our database that we can show you the results and the actual interest that guests expose when they get offered a early arrival and late departure. And I'm going to end with some of the takeaways that I think could be beneficial for you hoteliers. So a little bit about early arrival, late departure. Is this something that you should charge for? Should it be for free? There's this unknown or sort of this common thing out there in the world that these things should be very often offered for free because it's kind of nickel and diming if you don't do that for free, especially when it's discussion at front desk, because obviously the guest knows that the next guest doesn't arrive until mid or late afternoon. But the reality is it's real estate, and real estate costs money. The use of your room, the use of your square meters or square foot do cost the hotel money, and somebody who spends the night there should also be able to pay a little bit, in my opinion, or in many opinions, for the extended use of that real estate. Is it a COVID thing? Is this something that is doing really well right now because nobody wants to be in a lobby, nobody wants to be in a restaurant, or nobody could be in a restaurant because it was closed, so they stayed longer in their hotel room? So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And thinking about that, prior to COVID happening last year, when I was founder and CEO at Stay in Touch, we also had the early arrival and late departure as part of the PMS, and it was actually doing extremely well as it comes to guests purchasing those through their mobile device. So I don't think it's something that is particularly linked to COVID. COVID has certainly helped a little bit, I think, getting people to use it, but then there were also a lot less guests during COVID, as we all know. People pay $10 or more for food delivery. I'm not personally not a very good user of DoorDash and all these kind of things, but I tried it recently and I found that the delivery charge that A, I have to pay, or B, the restaurant owner has to take out of his own profit is fairly large. And so the cost of getting your food delivered to your door is not free. It's a nice convenient. And I think if you just extend that convenience thinking to allowing a guest to stay longer or arrive earlier in his hotel room, it's kind of the same thing. People are prepared to pay for convenience. So why not charge people for that particular point in time? And I think this got confirmed by one of our customers, Kevin Lee, Area Director of Revenue Management at Modus Hotels. He was really thinking, his biggest surprise was once he went live with a solution, our upsell solution, that he was very surprised by the uptake around early arrivals and late departures alone. He didn't think that that many people would purchase and pay for the values that we agreed we would charge to the guests. So it's a very clear example of missing out if you don't charge, or if you don't charge effectively for early arrival and late checkout. You're basically missing quite a bit of revenue opportunity. I think what's also important to think about is most of hoteliers have a very strong strategy around the room rate. That's their focus. How much can I charge per night for a guest? And you really focus on the room rate. One thing that's really important, I think, is understanding the guest wallet. How much money is a guest willing to spend? And that guest wallet opportunity changes over the lifetime of a guest looking for a hotel, booking the hotel, then the days to actually arrive for check-in, then in the hotel, and then at the checkout. If you only focus on the room rate, then really you're only selling once to a guest, which means you only give the guest an opportunity to spend once. What a person really does is they try to maximize their wallet. When they book a room, they look at what's out there on the web. They look at Expedia, they go to the hotel website, and you name it, to determine what are they willing to pay and what's out there. So if you only focus on rate, you only get that rate value. So I think when you think about upselling, and especially when you think about upselling early arrival and late departure, you should focus on maximizing the guest wallet. In other words, you should try to kind of extend the opportunities you offer to a guest to buy something. And if you think of the guest tension arc that you see here on the screen, you see a few ups and downs. Basically what that means, there is the excitement of getting to book the room. Then there's the happiness of having booked that room. And so there's also a moment after that you don't want to spend anymore. So offering right away something else is not very effective, because the guest has just normally purchased the maximum of what he thinks it's then worth. Now, as the guest gets closer to arrival, he forgets about, or she forgets about, the money they spend in buying the room. So there's an opportunity to see, can I get the guest a bit more? Can I get him an upgrade? Can I have him buy an early arrival? Can I have him buy a late departure, for example, or anything else for that matter? And I think Eric later on will probably talk about that also a bit more detail. But the key really is that if you give a guest multiple opportunities to buy something, you kind of try to maximize the guest wallet of the guest, which is kind of what you see here. You're trying to get more money without the guest really realizing that your main focus. You're getting that from the guest, which will really help you in getting higher revenues, basically. So if you take that in more detail, it's important to separate that wallet size. So first of all, don't upsell right away at the time of booking, but do the upsell strategically a couple of days before arrival, at arrival, during stay, and at the last day. So these are multiple points that you can use to sell something. And within those periods, there's a good opportunity, and the guest will be starting to think about, okay, I am going to arrive. Check-in time is 3 p.m. Oh, I'm going to arrive at 11 a.m. What am I going to do? Could I try to check in early? Is that available for me? All these things are going to become part of what the guests will think about as they go along. Another very important part of upselling things like early arrival and late departure is that they have a very high profit margin, much higher than auxiliary products such as breakfast or a bottle of champagne or anything like that. In essence, they have 100% profit margin because they're just an add-on onto the room revenue that you already have. That real estate sits empty. There is no cost to have somebody arrive early. There is no cost to have somebody leave late. The cost of cleaning the room is the same whether somebody arrives early or stays late, more or less. So it's kind of very easy, very high profit margin, and very easy add-on to the revenues you can generate. It's also easy to fulfill because assuming you have the room available, there's nothing else you have to do than check in the guest. And whether you do that at 11 a.m. or 3 p.m., it's kind of the same thing. Of course, there is the pressure around operations. You have to make sure that when you offer early arrival and you have guests pay for it in advance, that you can actually deliver on that room. So you have to have some inventory in place that can handle that, that manages that, because selling the, just selling the early arrival, late departure, that's a very easy task to achieve. Fulfilling it is, of course, very important to be successful with that and create loyalty and great high guest expectations. So again, focusing on early arrival, late departure, they have very high profit margins. It can be, especially right now, when you are struggling to get back out of, back out of the dark times from COVID and everything else, it's good to bring in some additional revenue. If you look at, the kind of the process, the time between booking and departure, prior, as you get closer to check-in, the overall profit margin of the things you can offer kind of decreases. While you're at the property, you kind of maximize most of the real estate offerings that you can make around room upgrade, early arrival, and late departure. You have a bit of an opportunity to do that again at late checkout, to have the guests stay long. Again, what I'm trying to say is that if you embrace charging for early arrival and late departure, or managing that process well, you can definitely increase your overall profit margin very easily. The important things about early arrival, kind of summarized, is it creates the multi-wallet opportunity. So it creates an opportunity for you as a hotelier not to just sell once a room night, but kind of throughout the guest arriving, offering more, increase that overall room night. It can definitely increase your ADR, and I have some examples of that in a minute. The guest also likes the personal attention. As I showed you guys earlier, as discussing earlier, people like convenience. So they like to pay for DoorDash, the delivery fee. So they're also very willing to, for example, pay for an early arrival and late departure, even though they may have already paid extensively for the room rate that they're getting. Guests, in essence, as I mentioned, don't mind paying for extra. And as I mentioned earlier, it's also giving you 100% margin, which I think is really key in times like this, where you try to increase profit and margin. So contrary to the general belief, guests generally love to pay for early arrival and late departure. I think it's really important that you think about offering it digitally. You can certainly offer it at the front desk if you have a good sales process in place to do so, but often there are other guests roaming around. Often the time to actually sell is not really the right timing. It's also, on the day off, the guest obviously knows kind of what's going on in the hotel. So it becomes very quickly, why can I not stay free for an hour or two longer? If you, however, offer the same early arrival, late departure digitally, either before arrival or during stay, when a late departure, it's all on the phone. All the guest has to do is simply click, and you have to make sure it can be fulfilled, and you're kind of good to go. Ensuring that you can guarantee it is really important, and that's what guests love. It's the same like I'm delivering food to my hotel or to my house. I want to make sure I get that. And if I don't get it, usually the delivery fee or the money is given back to me. So you want to make sure you can deliver on those things. If you, very simply said, if you have a 2-night average length of stay and you charge a $50 late departure fee for staying until 4 or 5 p.m., for example, then that really adds $25 to your daily rate. And on $150 to $200, that's a significant increase of your ADR for that particular stay. So worthwhile considering in your revenue strategies. When you do a digital and automated, which I think is truly very important, is to do, you ensure you have to fulfill the thing. It's one thing to be able to sell an early arrival and late departure. You can like post a new nice picture like I have here that the guests can see on their phone. You can the guest simply has to click and the sale is done. It gets added to your PMS. All of that is very easy. But when it comes to check-in or when it comes to staying late, you want to make sure that the hotel is ready to handle that there are rooms clean, that there is enough rooms clean for the arrivals when they have late departures. All of that is really important. So when you think about selling these opportunities through a digital system, it's key that your inventory is really matched and in place, and that system kind of handles that for you automatically. I think you should also offer it dynamically. So what that means is every guest has, as I mentioned, has a certain size wallet size. And if the guest, for example, has purchased a room for $100, charging $50 to $75 for a late departure is going to be very difficult, but $25 might be working well. And if you add all these $25 up, it ultimately becomes a fair amount of money. What's also key, and I think Michael mentioned that earlier, is that you have, of course, loyalty guests, you have high value guests. You can decide with the right digital strategy and with the right solution, which guests do I charge for early arrival and which do I not charge for. Or if you have the early arrival, late departure kind of divided in multiple segments per day, like from 12 to 2 p.m., from 2 to 4 p.m., and from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., you can decide this is a high value guest. He gets the first 2 hours for free. If he wants to stay longer, he has to pay half of the amount of money. All these kind of things you can work out digitally. And of course, they're very hard to kind of mimic and do at the front desk manually. So again, if you offer a early arrival and late departure solution digitally, you avoid also the very awkward conversation that often happens at the front desk. A couple of indicators that you can put in place to measure the success of your early arrival. You can work with the average early arrival fee that you get over, for example, a period of 30 days. You can work with the average late departure fee that you get over the last 30 days and see how that grows over time, comparing 1 month after the other month. Because I think it's important, especially now that guests are coming back, rates will start increasing, that you also work in those fees, that don't have them too static, that you work with as the rates, and as the guests come back, how you kind of determine the size of those rates. Some of the statistics that we have seen with our customers. So this is the average over our customers. And I have to be clear here, we right now only focus on room revenue. So we don't have a service that provides auxiliary guest services. That's something we'll be providing later. But out of the revenue that we generate for guests, 41% is generated by early arrival and late departure. Very important again to note is that is 100% margin revenue. There is no cost for you to fulfill that solution. The average early arrival that we've seen is close to $45. Some hotels went over $100, even more, kind of depending on the type of the hotel, the revenue rates that they were managing to charge. And again, all of this is happening over the last 6 months. So this is all during COVID, when occupancy and rates were fairly low. Average late departure, about $45 also, some even close to $100. And if you really think about it, on an average length of stay, that adds really 20 to 30% of your ADR for that particular stay. So it's going to have a real effect on your RevPAR and your ADR overall if you put this in place in a right way. And kind of putting all of that together, I think early arrival and late departure is something that is kind of here to stay. It's also something that I think guests, or we think guests, are more than happy, and we've seen that with our numbers, more than happy to pay for if you can fulfill and if you don't exaggerate it. But the key is to be able to fulfill it and to offer to the right guest at the right time. It helps you, get more money out of that particular guest. I think it's important to offer it in the right order. If you have an upsell strategy in place, you of course first want to sell the room. You want to maybe try to get the guests to buy a room upgrade. Then you want to offer early arrival, and you want to offer late departure close to the end of the guest stay, because that's kind of when the guest starts to focus on, do I need to stay longer? Do I not to stay longer? Of course, automation, I think these days is key. If you do this manually, if you want to keep manual track of the number of early arrivals and late departures and the rooms available, it becomes a labor-intensive effort, time consuming. If you can automate it, you get the right inventory collected through everything, it's really working well. So I think in general, we believe it's a really good opportunity to increase revenue and also to really increase your guest satisfaction that you have in your hotel. And with that, I'm to the end of it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Jos. That was a great presentation. As I was writing down questions, you answered them as you went through the flow. So it was very painful because there is, I can only say I love it, right? I'm a classical corporate traveler, and I don't think I haven't had a business hotel stay without early check-in and late checkout ever in my career, because you need to navigate with flights and everything else. So, and every time I find it a super bad experience. As bad as it can get, right? Half of the room rate for a couple of hours. Just ridiculous stuff that comes around. It's always a discussion. You said the front desk discussion is always painful as well. One thing that you always talk about guests. Can we differentiate a little bit? in terms of leisure and urban. Obviously, in COVID, it was a little bit different in terms of consumer behavior. But how does a hotelier differentiate that, and should they differentiate between leisure or like tourist guests and professional guests as well?
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously a very good question. I have to be very honest, we don't have a lot of data on business travelers because there were not many over the last 6 months, and we're a very young company. But the way we kind of anticipate we will address that, or will address that, is that when the hotel sets up the pricing structure that we dynamically create, it's based off the rate that the guest paid. So it's and of when the guest arrived. So what's the value of the room on the day of arrival, and what's the value of the day of the room when they booked the room, and within that we determine a good value and price for early arrival and late departure, and then we break it down in times. So like you said earlier, you don't have to pay half your room price for 2 hours extra. That's usually a little less than that. So it's kind of dynamically based on the time the guest stayed and how long they will and what they need, basically.
Yeah, because that's not easy, and when do you make it available as well? And that's something I would even, but like early check-in is obviously painful. You're coming to a hotel and said, hey, you can actually have your room already, but you need to pay me $50, I'll give it to you. That's not really going to work, right? Because you just tell them, well, you can jump because I'm here now, so sit in the lobby till it's ready. That's sort of revenue loss, so you have to do that pre-arrival. And obviously, but in terms of when you check in, you can also already make it available. You see your availability, you know what's happening in your hotel, and you can say, hey, if you wish, by the way, we can give you a late checkout already now, for an additional fee. Is that something you would recommend, and your system can recommend as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think the tradition of early arrival and late departure is that it's not proactive. It's not really something that's clearly offered by the hotel. It's usually something that the guest has to ask. And I think that needs to be turned around, because there's a lot of guests that are not asking because they think it's not available, and there's a lot of rooms that are, we all know, waiting to be used on the day of arrival of a guest, or staying longer. It's just so it's finding the rooms that are available, which our system does automatically. So the hotel staff doesn't have to think about it at the front desk. The guest gets the message proactively on their phone or device, whatever they use, which I think is a big step forward in offering this solution to guests. I think hotels need to think about making this just like you offer the sale of a room, offer early arrival and late departure somewhere along the stay, the time the guest arrives and stays at the hotel.
So here you are selling a wonderful additional service that hotels can monetize, but yet again, it adds to the complexity of my tech stack. So I'm just going to get very scared. And we're very compressed on time here. But that's a really urgent question that I have, because I see that in vacation rental, we verticalized the crap out of the value chain with technology, and now puts margin compression on the operators. This sounds like a great opportunity to make some additional cash, increase ADRs and everything else. How does that integrate in terms of technology? Does that integrate into your PMS? How much work has to be done to make it work for a hotelier?
Well, that depends to some extent on the type or the age of the PMS that we would be connecting to. The older ones, let's just take Opera for an example. The complexity of the old technology takes. So we've built a full two-way that kind of makes that whole process automated. It just, the hotel needs to purchase that interface, and then we go from there. With the newer PMSs, such as Stay in Touch, Muse, Apaleo, and so on, it's basically an API handshake. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but we've done that work basically, and it's sort of an automated process. So if you were a hotel that were, let's say, on Stay in Touch, all you have to do is tell the vendor or tell us to call Stay in Touch, get the API key, and then we basically download all the information automatically, and it's seamless. So getting this going is a matter of 30 to 45 minutes in all involvement from you as a hotelier, and that's it. And then it kind of puts all the information in the PMS. So you as a hotelier don't have to look back into our solution. You can do anything you need to do or see in the PMS. And that makes it fairly seamless running in the background.
Wonderful. Well, I really like it already a lot. ROOMDEX is something I'm going to watch. You should go to the startup competition at Focusrite. I'm sure they'll love you there. Good luck with your tech and everything else. I really like it. Even if it's not 45 minutes and 2 hours for integration, it'll be still speedy and great for travelers, but also great for hoteliers. So it's great to have you, Jos. Either another coffee or back for a nap. So thank you for being with us at early hours from the West Coast. And it was great to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.